Any questions? Everything was clear so the square which is called St. Mary's Magdalene Square. Guys, this is the very first medieval market square of Krakow. It's about 1,100 years old. So very quickly, Krakow citizens, they realized that the square of St. Mary's Magdalene is not big enough to fit many, many merchants from all over Europe. That's why later on, in 1257, we built this huge medieval market square where we met this morning, yeah? However, this area we're right now, this is the second oldest part of Krakow after the castle. It's about 1,100 years old. And over here you can find one of the oldest buildings in Poland. That's the church on the right side. And you see this building made of limestone. Yeah, can you see it? This is an example of the first architectural style present in Poland. It's called Romanesque. So the Church of St. Andrew, guys, it's coming from 1000. It's about 1,000 years old. And it's still standing. So it means that this church survived the Mongolian invasion from 12 times. Guys, the church survived the invasion because that was not only a church, that was a fortress. That was a stronghold. Look, I am 1 meter 80 centimeters tall. Walls of that church are 2 meters thick. So walls are thicker than I'm tall. Can you imagine? So guys, the church was not taken by Mongols, and it's still standing. Great example of the first non-wooden style in Poland called Romanesque. But give a look on the second church on the left. Can you see it? Guys, the second church on the left, this is the church of St. Peter and St. Paul. This is the very first Baroque church in Krakow. That's a copy of the church in Rome. In Rome you can find a church called Still Jesus. Look, walking around the city center of Krakow, you may notice that there are lots of buildings which may remind you a little bit of Italy, right? Because guys, at that time, local society was very wealthy. They had enough money to bring artists from Italy. That's why many buildings in the old town are Renaissance or Baroque, made by artists from Italy. Look, next to the university, I mentioned that there was a royal marriage. That our female king, Hedwig, she got married with Grand Duke of Lithuania, right? So thanks to this marriage, there was a union, personal union connecting Poland and Lithuania. But in 16th century, Poland together with Lithuania signed the Act of Union, similar like Scotland and England. So after that, we got the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Guys, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was expanding, was getting bigger and bigger, more wealthy and more powerful. In 1610, so the same year when this church of St. Peter's and St. Paul was built, this church on the left side. So guys, in 1610, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, that was a huge country from the Baltic Sea in the north to the Black Sea in the south, including many independent countries from today, like Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, big part of Russia, small part of Romania and Slovakia. Huge part of Russia, including Moscow. In 1610, Moscow was conquered by the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Moscow was controlled by Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth until 1612. So it was controlled by the Polish army only for about 2 years. Only for 2 years, but it still counts, yeah? When we talk about Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, it was very wealthy and powerful country, but it collapsed. In late 1700s, we've lost independence. 1795, it was erased from the maps of Europe. Eastern side of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth became part of Russia. The southern part of Krakow was incorporated to the Austrian Empire. That's why in Krakow, besides tasty pierogi, Polish food, you can get also very good schnitzel. This is an Austrian influence. Okay? But the western side of Poland became part of one of the German states called Prussia. In this way, we got partitions, and we've lost independence in 1795 for another 123 years. There were 5 big uprisings to get independence back. All of them failed. New hope to get independence back gave us the First World War, the end of the Great War. 1918, 11th of November, Poland proclaimed independence, but only for 20 years. The rest of the history you know. World War II, almost 50 years of communism. So guys, in the last 200 years, people in Poland were fighting for freedom almost all the time. So guys, obviously on the walking tour I do not have enough time to explain to you everything. So if you like history, you like to learn a little bit more details, how it is possible that one of the richest, one of the largest countries in Europe so easily disappeared from European maps? How it was possible that Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth lost independence? What was the situation during World War II and communist era? Guys, more details you can find on the radio show. Do you know BBC Radio? 2 years ago, two journalists from BBC Radio Channel 4 from Bristol, they came to Krakow to make 3 episodes in their show about our history. This show, it's possible to listen as a podcast on Spotify. So you can check this out. You can find how to invent a country. Timothy Snyder, the main history professor from Yale University, United States, is going to explain to you a lot. Norman Davies from Oxford and London universities, Timothy Atnagash, very famous British historian, they're going to explain to you a lot, including me. They came to Krakow to make an interview with me. And guys, I got a link to listen to the show from Miles Ward, from the producer, and I realized after 2.5 hours conversation with BBC radio journalists, they gave me only 3 minutes on the air. Still counts. Yeah? Show me another very famous tour guide who has a BBC show in Krakow. Check this out. Let's go.
Have you listened to it?
I was signed on the first list of the world's UNESCO heritage already in 1978. The city of Krakow, the city center, this historic core of the city, guys, is on the list of UNESCO as the first European city. Krakow is before Westminster in London. Krakow is on the UNESCO list before Paris or Rome, because Krakow is very, very special. If you're going to give a look over here on the wall, you may find how the UNESCO sign looks like, and you may find a date on the very bottom, 1978. The year when we got this emblem. But guys, World War II, like I said, it was difficult time. So when Hitler committed suicide, when Nazi Germany lost the Second World War, we should be happy. We should celebrate anniversary of the end of World War II every single year. But we do not celebrate. We do not celebrate at all. Well, a little bit because of the Polish flag. The Polish flag, you know, has some colors, right? The white stands for purity. The red stands for blood. We've lost fighting for independence. And blue stands for faithful allies. So what kind of colors of flag we have? White and red. There is no blue. Guys, Polish people felt very betrayed after World War II. We've lost the war not only because of Nazis, but also because of allies. Because right before the end of the Second World War, Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin, they met each other in Yalta and Crimea on February 1945 to discuss what they're going to do with Europe after they're going to beat Hitler. And on that meeting, they decided to divide Europe into parts. Western Europe, with the free market, with democratic system, under protection of the United States, and Eastern Europe, in the shade of Moscow, with the communist ideology. Guys, this is not for what Polish fighters flying above London in the Battle of Great Britain were fighting for. This is not for what people who were fighting in the biggest battle of Italy, called Monte Cassino, were dying for. This is not for what people liberating Breda in Netherlands were fighting for as well. These people were fighting with allies for one simple goal, to get independence back. And there was no independence. There was another regime. A swap from Berlin to Moscow. Guys, communist era wasn't easy. Like I said, there were many people connected to the resistance, about 2 million, but if they fought against Nazis, they could fight against communist power, right? Many of them were unfortunately killed by the secret police. Fake political trials, and they've been sent to gulags. 45,000 at least. How many exactly, we don't know. national heroes. Could be dangerous. They should disappear. So guys, people in Poland didn't like to be communists. This is not for what we are fighting for. That's why there were big demonstrations. But guys, there were problems with these demonstrations. Sometimes they were organized by students, sometimes by the working class. But there was a game changer. When we've been walking over here, you probably realize that on the left side, across the tram lines, there was a yellowish building with the face of the Pope, John Paul II, yeah? That was a bishop's palace. John Paul II, he is very important for people in Poland, not only because he was a Pope. Look how perspective of the Polish people has been changed when he's been elected. Communists, in general, this ideology is very against religion. And what we got? We got a Pope from the communist state in 1978. It should be a scenario for the next Monty Python's comedy, because it's very ironic, yeah? John Paul II, he gave big hope for the Polish society. People felt united. And they realized that John Paul II, he is a different Pope than another Pope before. John Paul II, he'd been traveling a lot. He was speaking with, President of the United States, Prime Minister of Great Britain, Queen Elizabeth II. People in Poland noticed that. They felt united. They were hoping the Pope is going to be an ambassador of the Polish case abroad. So 1 year after Pope's visit in Poland, he came to Poland in 1979. So 1 year later, 1980, simple union of workers in one of the shipyards in Gdańsk, in the northern part of Poland, was turned into the big movement called the Solidarity Movement. Guys, 12 million people joined, and they started general strike. Not like previously in one city, in one factory. 12 million of Polish people stopped working. So who's losing income, if not the regime? So guys, communists, they had to stop. They couldn't kill or imprison 12 million of Poles. 4th of June, 1989, we got independence back. 4th of June, 1989, we got first democratic elections after the war. We got freedom. But there is a difference between tasty Italian pizza and freedom. What's the difference? Guys, Italian pizza may feed family, freedom not. I was born 1989. I don't remember communist era, but I remember early 90s when I was a little kid, when I used to cry to my mom, "Mom, why I do not have any present on the Christmas tree?" I was dreaming old Walkman. Remember Walkmans with cassettes? I wanted to listen Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up. But I couldn't, my parents couldn't afford to buy me Walkman. We had barely money for food. There was 35% of the unemployment rate. There was hyperinflation. So even if you save money, they were a worthless piece of paper. Guys, in the last 35 years, Poland made a huge step. That's a different country than in the 90s. But if you think that we have the same life conditions like in the West, I'm afraid that you are wrong. Guys, Krakow isn't cheap. Poland isn't cheap anymore. However, people do not earn a lot of money over here. About 60% of the population, so majority nowadays in 21st century, here in Poland, earns about 3,200 zlotys a month. This is more or less like 700 euros a month. So guys, if you like to rent a flat here in Krakow, which is not cheap, for a small studio, 40 square meters, you're going to pay about 3,000 a month. So you earn minimum wage. Most of money you'd spend just for rent. In your pocket, you'd have only 200 zlotys after all. Well, 50 pounds, right? So guys, that's the reason, unfortunately, why till today, many young people are trying to find better life abroad. They are moving to Great Britain, Ireland, Germany, United States. But guys, give us another 20 years. If you made a huge step in last 35, give us another 20. And I believe in next 20 years, there won't be need to steal job of British people like we do so far, they complain. Okay? Let's go. Now you know why we have grumpy faces in Poland? That's the perfect answer. So let's wait for everyone. feel cold, remember our dancing, yeah? Dancing steps. Regashki, yeah? Move your arms, move your legs, yeah? It's going to be nice. So guys, when we talk about this building, like I said, this is the oldest university building in Poland, one of the oldest university buildings in the world. However, as you know, from the time before the melody, before the show in the courtyard, I said that this is not the first university building. We don't know actually where were located the first university buildings. We don't know where because our university actually got a serious problem. Because the kingdom got a problem. The founder of this university, King Casimir the Great, he had only daughters. And that was a problem for the kingdom. Because guys, according to the law, only king could sit on the Polish throne in late 1300s. Only king. So if our King Casimir the Great had only daughters, there was no successor. So after his death, it could be like a Polish Game of Thrones. It could be like a civil war. To avoid a civil war, King Casimir the Great, he decided to speak with his nephew. His nephew was also a king. He was the king of Hungary. He was called Louis of Hungary. Louis of Hungary had the same problem, had only daughters. And that was a serious problem for Hungary as well. So our king, Casimir the Great, the founder of the university in Krakow, he proposed a solution. He said to his nephew, listen Louis, I don't have a son, you don't have a son, so let's make a deal. If I'm going to die first, you are going to take control of Poland, because Poland has to have a king after my death. But if you are going to die first, I'll take control of Hungary. The high five, signed documents, and obviously our king died first. Guys, King Casimir the Great, he died in the year 1370. So look, just 6 years after the university was opened. And the next king, Louis, he was not very interested to pay lots of money for the public university. It was very expensive thing. So that's why there were no money to keep going for the university, and that's the reason why in 1370 the university in Krakow was suspended. And first university buildings changed purpose. That's why we don't know where they are located. However, Louis had the same problem like King Casimir the Great. He had only daughters, and like I said, unfortunately the law was pretty clear. Only king could have power. So even he had 3 daughters, queen wasn't equal to the king in medieval Poland. But Louis, he was a very clever guy. He organized a meeting with Polish lords, gave them set of privileges, he decreased their taxes, but he was expecting something in return. He said to Polish lords, yes, you're going to have easier life, but you need to promise, when I'm going to die, you are going to crown one of my daughters as the next king of Poland. And that was a trick. Only king could sit on the Polish throne according to the law. But there was never written that king cannot be a female. So daughter of Louis of Hungary, she was called Hedwig, in Polish Jadwiga. Guys, she wasn't crowned as queen. No, her official title was the king. We got a female king. Why not? The king can rule the country, yes. And why not the female, yeah? Why not the girl? So guys, in this case, actually, they overlooked the law, and we got a female king, Hedwig. But when Hedwig grown up, when she was ready to get married, Polish lords were looking around Europe to find husband for our king. And they found the Duke of Lithuania, called Jagiełło. Guys, when Jagiełło came to Krakow to get married with Hedwig, well, the Pope of the Catholic Church was not very happy with that choice. Because look, Poland was already a Catholic country, but Lithuania was still pagan. They were not Christians yet. So how this bound, the royal marriage connecting two countries, would work if one of these countries would be Christian, another country would be pagan. So that's the reason why the Pope demanded to baptize Lithuania, to make them Christians. Hedwig, she wasn't stupid. She knew it won't be easy. That's why she asked the Pope for a permission to reopen the university once again. To reopen it also with a theology faculty, to have clergy, highly educated priests who would be sent in her name to Lithuania with Christianity. So what Hedwig planned, she did. She asked the Pope, she received the permission, but the university was very, very, very expensive. It took few years to collect enough money. And meanwhile, our female king died. Hedwig died very young. She died when she was about 25. She died because of the birth complications. Ladies, you know that even now in 21st century, delivering a baby might be dangerous. But back in time of medievals, people could dream about antibiotics. There were no medications at all. So guys, when Hedwig delivered her first baby, she got an infection. She used to lay in the bed with a very, very high temperature, and she was certain she's going to die. That's the reason why Hedwig, she wrote her last will. In her testament was written that she wanted to give her own private jewelry to have money for reopening the university. So after her death, her husband, Jagiełło, he sold his valuables, got enough cash to buy 4 buildings. These 4 buildings were rebuilt in one building, and here we go, with Collegium Might. So guys, this building behind me was built thanks to money of Hedwig, but thanks to the final decision of Jagiełło, her husband. That's why our university nowadays, it's called Jagiellonian University, after Jagiełło. So this building, it's coming from the very beginning of 1400s. It's 624 years old, which makes this building one of the oldest university buildings in the world. It still belongs to the university. Till today we have lectures inside, but only time to time. Daily, that's a museum. I really recommend to come back and to check this out, because besides some items connected with medieval scholars, you may find an Oscar Prize. In Krakow used to live a very famous film director called Andrzej Wajda, and he gave an Oscar statue from Hollywood to our university. But in Krakow used to live also a very famous Nobel Prize poet called Wisława Szymborska, and she decided to give the golden medal of Alfred Nobel to the university as well. So show me another museum. We're going to find an Oscar statue standing next to the Nobel Prize. In my opinion, it's pretty amazing. So I really recommend to come back and check this out. But guys, already in medievals, this one brick building was not enough. There were more and more students coming over here, so every single building around us, this is an old medieval university campus. So because this is the place you can study, I'll teach you one word in Polish language. You can repeat after me. Dziękuję.
Dziękuję.
Dziękuję, it means thank you. If you're going to forget how to say Polish thank you, there is very easy trick how to memorize it. Definitely you've heard about very famous alcoholic beverage from England called gin and tonic. If you like to order gin and tonic, you need to go to the bar. In the bar, you're going to be waiting in a queue. You're going to be standing in a line. You're going to be queuing like a typical British person, yeah? And after hours of waiting in the bar, finally you can get your favorite drink. Then, when you are going to be happy, you can use American English. Americans, whenever they are excited and happy, they say, yeah. So look, gin, Q, yeah. In this way, you are never going to forget how to say Polish thank you. Gin, Q, yeah. And everyone will understand. But keep in mind that dziękuję in Poland also has a secret meaning. It also means keep the change. So let's say after this walking tour with me, you're going to get hungry, you're going to go to the restaurant, and you're going to order Polish dumplings, Polish pierogi, yeah? And you're going to pay for it 100 zlotys. But you may realize that in your pocket, it's only 200 zloty note. You do not have change. So you're going to give this 200 zloty note to the waiter, and with a big smile, you're going to say, dziękuję. It means keep the change. So right now, you gave 100% tip. So I would recommend to calculate your tip first. Usually we give about 10-15%. Obviously, only if the service was good. It's not a must. It's not like United States, yeah? So basically, you know, after calculating your tip, when you're going to get the change, then please say dziękuję before you're going to leave the local. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for your money. Remember, let's go.
You okay? Do you want me to take one of them?
Børnebælge. Det er sådan set meget logisk.
Okay guys, let's stop over here. Any questions? Everything was clear so far? So guys, I have a question. Do you know any other very famous graduates of our university besides me? Definitely you know. Very good. You may find this monument right over here behind me. Guys, Nicolaus Copernicus sounds familiar, right? We are studying about Copernicus all over the world, about his discovery, you know, that he realized that we are not in the central part of the universe, that actually Earth is not in the central part of our universe, and Sun is not spinning around Earth, but it's quite opposite, right? That we have heliocentric system. Grand discovery of Copernicus. He used to study here in Krakow between 1491 until 1494. So only for about 3 years. But Copernicus never graduated our university. He decided to move to Italy. University of Bologna is the oldest university in Europe. It's coming from 1088. So our university was reopened beginning of 1400. So in 90s of 15th century, our university was relatively young. That's the reason why Copernicus moved to Italy to graduate university over there, to get diploma from better known and more prestigious university at that time. That's why he used to study over here only for about 3 years. But it still counts. Yeah? One of the most famous, you know, astronomers in the history of humankind used to study here in Krakow on our university. But guys, there was another famous guy who used to study here. He was called Karol Wojtyła. Karol Wojtyła, he'd been studying Polish language studies in 1938. But in 1939, we got the Nazi invasion. World War II has started, 1st of September 1939. Nazis that were following very racist ideology. In opinion of Nazis, only the German race was the chosen one. They were calling themselves Übermenschen, superhumans. Because of differences in language, because of differences in culture, Polish people are called Untermenschen, which means neither humans, like not even human being, yeah? So guys, Polish people are considered by Nazis as slaves. The slave doesn't have to be highly educated, doesn't have to know how to interpret poetry, right? So that's the reason why in November 1939, during World War II, Nazis organized a lecture, a conference for the local professors in this brick building behind you. So we're going to turn around. Guys, you may see the main administrative building of the university nowadays. It's called Collegium Novum. Novum, which means new in Latin, because it's not that old. It's only about 200 years old, that's why it's called new. However, guys, in this building in November 1939, 183 professors, unfortunately, who came for the lecture, very quickly realized that there won't be any lecture. That was an ambush. They were brutally dragged outside the building, they were packed in the lorries, they were sent to the railway station, and they ended up their journey in Sachsenhausen concentration camp to be killed. Help for the local professors didn't come from England, nor from the United States. It came from a very unexpected place. It came from fascists, from Mussolini, from Rome. Mussolini somehow convinced Hitler to let them out. So February 1940, a couple of months later, local professors were released. They could come back to Krakow, but they couldn't teach anymore. The university remained to be closed. But guys, during World War II, there was strong resistance. There were about 2 million of people who were trying to fight against Nazis. 2 million, a lot. Professors, they were part of the resistance, but they didn't know how to shoot guns. They didn't know how to fight in this way. They decided to fight in their own way. They knew how to teach. So as long as the university was closed for the Polish people, they decided to give lectures in secret. They created an underground university called unofficially the Flying University. Flying because students were divided in small groups, like 6-8 people, and they could meet with the professor in the cafe, in the bar, in the park, in their private homes. Constantly they were changing meeting points. In this way, some of students, they could graduate the university and officially on the flying university. Flying because there were meetings organized always in different spots. They were, let's say, flying around the city. But not every professor could make it. Not every professor could survive concentration camp. Most of them were elderly people, right? They couldn't survive terrible life conditions in concentration camps. So guys, Karol Wojtyła, he couldn't continue his Polish language studies, which he started before the war. But Karol Wojtyła, he was very religious Catholic, so he decided to study theology. And after World War II, Karol Wojtyła changed name. Because in 1978, in Vatican, he'd been elected as a Pope. Pope John Paul II. Definitely more famous guy than me. Guys, World War II, it was a difficult time. Very difficult time. It's hard to believe how many people we've lost. Guys, during World War II, only, 5.5 years. 5.5 years of the World War II is a small promile of 1,300 years of history of Poland. Guys, when you talk about this time, we've lost during World War II almost 20% of our population. We've lost 6 million of people. 6 million of people, it's a lot. 6 million of people, guys, this entire population of countries like Denmark or Ireland. That many people lost. But Krakow survived. The city of Krakow wasn't destroyed during World War II, and there are certain reasons why. So let's go on the next stop to find out why Krakow had to survive. Follow me. Yeah, let's go, guys. Let's come. Follow me.
Yeah, I'll do it for you.
Okay, guys, let's stop over here. Let's wait for everyone, just in case if the car is going to be coming over here, we need to move. Yeah, so usually no one is driving here, so no worries. But maybe, yeah, let's stop on the side. I'll be risking my life. We don't have to. So guys, if so many people have been murdered during World War II over here in Poland, how it is possible that the city of Krakow survived? Why it wasn't destroyed? Why it wasn't bombed? Guys, Krakow had to survive because it was too important for the Nazi propaganda. And Nazis used history of Krakow. They knew it. They were not stupid. Guys, Krakow was destroyed by Mongols, as I mentioned at the beginning of our walking tour, right? That the very first building of St. Mary's Basilica looked differently, but unfortunately it was taken down by Mongols in 1241. And guys, like I said, Mongols, they were not coming over here to occupy our land. They were coming over here just for rights, to rob local people, to enslave local people. So after the Mongolian invasion, many Krakow citizens were or killed or enslaved by Mongols. So basically there were lack of people to rebuild our town. But somebody had to do it. Somebody had to rebuild it. So that's the reason why the Duke of Krakow, he wanted to bring new people to move to our place. But to convince these new people, he decided to copy idea from Germany. Guys, if you're going to get to Germany, there is an old medieval town called Magdeburg. Magdeburg citizens, already in 1100s, they received big autonomy. They got a possibility to elect city chancellors, and the city council elected among citizens of Magdeburg, they were right to make the law. And citizens of Magdeburg, they were right to be judged in the name of this law. So look, the Emperor of Germany had no rights to judge citizens of Magdeburg anymore. They got their own autonomy. So our Duke of Krakow, he heard about Magdeburg. To convince new settlers, he decided to copy this idea to make people feel like home, because most of them were brought from Germany, and basically to show them that they're going to have their own autonomy. They're going to have their own city council. Yeah? So that's the reason why in the year 1257, after Mongolian invasion, the city of Krakow was located according to the Magdeburg city rights. That's why, guys, when you're going to be walking around the main market square, you may notice that the main market square is a huge rectangular square, and in the north, streets are going straight, making like a grid. So we're going to give a look on the map of Krakow, of Krakow's old town. You may see that the northern side of the old town looks like Chicago, United States. Thanks to this grid system, properties were more or less the same size, and people could have equal tax system as well. So not only documents, but also urbanistic of Krakow may tell us about Magdeburg city rights. Nazis, they were not stupid. They knew about this history, and they knew that they can use it in their own propaganda. Doesn't matter Krakow used to be the capital of Poland for over 600 years. Doesn't matter, because in the opinion of Nazis, Krakow wasn't a Polish town. Krakow was like Magdeburg. Krakow was German heritage. Nazis were so brainwashed that they believed they're going to win the war. They're going to stay over here forever. So why to destroy German heritage? They destroyed only monuments, connect to our national heroes, connect to our history. Monuments we couldn't fit their propaganda. But the city of Krakow had to survive. So Krakow survived World War II. So everything within Old Town, it's really old. It didn't have to be reconstructed because it wasn't destroyed. This is something very unique. Guys, most of cities in Poland were heavily damaged. Like Gdańsk is a beautiful place in the northern side of Poland on the Baltic seashore, but Gdańsk was destroyed in about 70%. Warsaw was destroyed in over 95%, our capital. But Krakow, not at all. So that's one of the main reasons why the city of Krakow. Very good. So like I said, the city of Krakow is currently very important academic town. But guys, the city of Krakow used to be very important academic town already back in time of medievals. Right now we are standing before the building, which is actually one of the oldest university buildings in the world. This building behind me is called Collegium Majus. Collegium Majus in Latin, it means a grand college. However, the grand college isn't that old like the university itself. The university was established here in Krakow in 1364, but we don't know where. Definitely not here. Because according to archaeology and history research, we realized that actually in 1364, this building didn't exist. There were 4 different separate buildings owned by the local merchants. So university had to be somewhere else. We don't know where. Maybe at the main market square, maybe in the castle, definitely not here. But guys, details, why it's like that, I'm going to let you know in a few minutes. Because there is something you shouldn't miss. In about 3 minutes, at 11 o'clock, inside the building, in the courtyard, you're going to have a nice show. You're going to hear the melody, which is an anthem of the university. It's called Gaudamus Igitur. You're going to see wooden figures walking around the clock, and they will be walking in the company of another melody, which was being played in 16th century royal court in the castle. So it's very good to listen to that show, because you won't find these melodies on Spotify. So in my opinion, it's going to be very nice. So prepare your cameras. It's going to be very nice content for Instagram. So guys, I've heard these melodies too many times. I'm sick of it. I'll be waiting outside. So after the melody, please come back over here, okay? Go inside and check this out. outside of the hat. The hat is open. Everyone can go inside of the hat. It's a very popular thing for tourists. They are coming inside. They are pretending that the hat is an eyeball in the empty eye hole. It's a very nice content for Instagram. The hat is open all the time, even by night. It was made in 1999 by the artist from Poland called Igor Mitoraj. And me and my friends, in 2010, when we've been studying over here, we're going inside of the hat. And we're going outside the hat in a little bit different conditions, if you know what I mean. But guys, I do not recommend to go inside of the hat, actually, because the hat is cursed. The hat has a name. It's called Eros Bendato. Eros, this is the ancient god of love. Bendato, in Italian, it means blindfolded. So according to interpretation made by Krakow citizens, they do not go inside of the hat, because unfortunately, after visiting this hat, your love is going to be blind as well. So guys, we can trust me or not. I'm just your tour guide, yeah? But I've been inside a head, and this is very, very sad story. Apparently I was drinking too much, that's why I do not drink too much anymore. And my girlfriend dumped me, yeah? I was lonely for another year. So I do not recommend to go inside of the head if you don't be lonely like me back in time, yeah? Remember about it. Follow me. Right, we have only the tower today, but we do not have the town hall building. Guys, the tower and the town hall were built in 14th century Gothic style, but unfortunately the town hall building collapsed in 19th century. It didn't collapse just like that. There was an accident. Guys, back in time of medievals, the city of Krakow used to be the capital of Poland, and the capital had to be protected very, very well. So there were very impressive fortifications, 2 lines of defensive walls, 47 towers, attached to the main city wall, 7 city gates, fortresses in front of city gates, huge moat, 25 meters wide, 6 meters deep, full of water. But guys, that was not enough. Because Krakow is small, Krakow's old town isn't big. So if army of enemies would be big enough, they wouldn't risk their life to fight with Krakow city guards on city walls. They would rather try to isolate Krakow citizens, and they would make the siege, and Krakow citizens who would stuck within city walls, sooner or later they would starve. If they would be starving, they would open gates anyway, right? So that's the reason why at the main market square, right next to the medieval Gothic town hall building, was built a municipal grain storage. The place from where local people could get rations of food in a case of siege. But in 19th century, war tactics changed. No one made siege of Krakow anymore. So that's the reason why city walls were taken down. If you're going to be walking in that direction, there, a little bit north from the main market square, you're going to find small remains of city walls. But instead of fortifications, around the old town nowadays, you may find a park, green belt, called Planty Park. So everything within this park is like within city walls in medieval. So you can see easily and distinguish which is actually the medieval core, which is a little bit younger. Yeah. However, guys, when we talk about this building became useless like city walls because no one made siege of Krakow anymore. So constructors, they got an order to demolish it as well. But they destroyed, unfortunately, foundations of the Gothic town hall building, which collapsed as well. That's why we do not have the town hall building anymore. We have only the tower. And here you can see the second model. Guys, this model is directly connected with the part of time what we have now. The Christmas time, yeah? So this is the local nativity scene. This is the place which is being shown by Krakow citizens where baby Jesus was born. Obviously, guys, when you talk about these nativity scenes from Krakow, they always include some elements from the local architecture. If you're going to give a look at this tower, yeah, it looks very similar like the Church of St. Mary's. So, guys, when you're going to be walking around Krakow's old town, you're going to find many of nativity scenes like that. This is UNESCO tradition. So, guys, the city center of Krakow, this is UNESCO site. However, not only, let's say, architecture, not only the buildings, but also some traditions, some customs might be on the list of UNESCO. And one of the Krakow's customs about making this nativity scene is on the UNESCO list as well. on the separate list. So I definitely recommend to walk around and find more these nativity scenes. But guys, I promised to show you the place where I was, going with my friends in the evenings to avoid to, spend too much money for pina coladas. So let's go, follow me.
Sorry.
Okay guys, let's stop over here. Let's wait for everyone. Yeah, let's stop. Let's wait a few seconds. Last people coming here. They have a baby, there were some steps on the way. Let's wait for them. So guys, like I said, unfortunately I won't have enough time to show you everything, so that's why you're going to get a very simple and very little homework. after this walking tour, in a few minutes when you're going to finish in the castle, guys, I really recommend to come back and stand in front of the main entrance to the Royal Cathedral. With the group is simply impossible because we're going to block the entrance. When you're going to be standing on the first step, you're going to look on the gate on the left-hand side, you know, looking for the gate of the wall in front of us. Guys, on the left-hand side by the entrance to the Royal Cathedral, you're going to find 3 very, very large bones chained to the wall. Bones of the dragon. If you're going to go down the hill, go down the ramp, go around the castle, on the bank of the river, you're going to find the statue of the dragon. Because the dragon, it's one of the symbols of Krakow. And in Polish pronunciation, Krakow it's called Kraków. And many foreign people, whenever they hear this name for the first time, Kraków, they are pretty certain that Kraków is called Kraków because of people who are smoking crack. Obviously that's not true. So guys, when we talk about the name, Kraków comes from the founder of this place. This guy who was called Krakus. Krakus settled down over here on the limestone hill where we have the castle today about 1,300 years ago. But when Krakus settled down, obviously first settlers, they were digging foundations to build new buildings, houses, and they were noisy. They were very noisy. They were that noisy that they woke up a grand evil, the creature which used to sleep in the cave down the hill. When you're going to find a statue of the dragon on the bank of the river, I really recommend to go over there and check this out because the statue of the dragon is spitting real fire every couple of minutes. You don't have to say Dracarys like Game of Thrones to see the flame from the dragon's mouth. However, guys, behind the monument, you're going to find an exit of the cave. If you're going to come back to Krakow in the summertime, the cave, the real natural cave in the city center, it's open for tourists from April till October. So I really recommend. But this cave was occupied by the dragon. And when the dragon woke up, by Krakow citizens, started terrifying local people by eating livestock of first settlers, cows, horses, pigs. But very quickly the dragon realized that he has a favorite food. Young girls. Well, Krakus, he got afraid that his young daughter is going to be next in the line to feed the dragon. So Krakus organized a competition for knights and soldiers. Whoever would come to Krakow and slay the dragon would get hand of princess and half of the kingdom. Many brave knights arrived. White horses, shining armors. But all of them failed because the dragon was spitting fire. All of them were burned by the dragon's flame. But one simple man decided to give it a try. He was not a warrior. He was just a shoemaker, simple shoemaker. So people were wondering, how are you going to kill the dragon if you do not have even soul? The shoemaker, he said that he won't be fighting. He won't be fighting against the dragon. He's going to kill it with a trick. The simple man, shoemaker, he killed a lamb, young sheep. He stuffed the lambskin with sulfur and oil, set it down the hill in front of the cave, and was keep waiting. The next day, the dragon woke up, hungry like usually, realized that there was tasty sheep in front of the cave, a gift from Krakow citizens to spare on other girls. So the dragon immediately jumped outside the cave and swallowed the lamb. And that was the first mistake. Guys, sulfur burns. So, when the dragon swallowed lamb full of sulfur, the sulfur started to burn dragon inside. The dragon's flame from the dragon's belly went out of control and the dragon got some problems with digestion. Guys, the dragon never had spicy food before, had no idea what to do next, so jumped to the river, started to drink water from the river to extinguish this fire. And that was the second mistake. When the dragon started to drink water from the river, this cold water mixed with the boiling oil, hidden in the lamp, yeah? And you know what is going to happen with your kitchen? You like to try to extinguish your frying pan with glass of water. You're going to see an explosion, a chemical reaction, and you're going to lose your kitchen. So don't do that at home. The dragon had no knowledge about this chemical reaction. So when the dragon starts to drink water, this water mixes with the boiling oil and the dragon's stomach rip apart. The dragon exploded, leaving many bones, which are chained to the wall of the royal cathedral by the entrance. So when you're walking inside, you're going to find it on the left-hand side. Very dramatic story. So what do you think now? That's a true story or not? Obviously, we have dragon bones, right? But guys, we had to be certain. So that's why in the 1800s, from our university, we brought some scientists, some professors. They checked these bones over here and they realized, sorry guys, but there was no anything like the dragon. People had no knowledge that there was something called an ice age, that there were big animals like mammoths walking around. These big bones couldn't match to any animal they knew, so they created a story about the dragon to find some answers. But guys, the dragon legend, it has a beautiful moral. It means if you like to destroy grand evil, like the dragon, you cannot use violence. You cannot use any kind of weapon. You need to be smart, like the simple shoemaker. You need to move your head. Yeah? One of the Krakow's motto is plus ratio quam vis, which means in Latin, the mind is stronger than soul. That's the moral of the story. And the dragon is one of the symbols of Krakow. But guys, this is the most important church in Poland. This is the royal cathedral, the place where Polish kings were crowned, where Polish kings were buried, where were royal funerals and royal weddings. So let's move a little bit around the corner to a better view, and I will let you know why this church is so vibrant, why it's so different than many other cathedrals in the world.
Parę razy. Ahí más tengo una amiga que está una carta se va a tirar de
Sol, tanta luz, sol.
voy a reventar.
No, al fondo y ahora pararemos a la foto. Mamá, ahora paramos a la foto para aquí.
Guys, let's stop in front, let's stop over here.
There's a space.
Jak o tym mówiłem.
No
Na
właśnie,
początku
właśnie,
też
właśnie.
nie omawiać.
Tam.
Więc jak skończymy tam przy mapie, żeby wam dać trochę później jakieś rekomendacje, co tu można zobaczyć.
Super.
Więc to zaraz obok tego,
Okay.
obok tego bankomatu. Okay guys, so give a look at the church. When you talk about the Royal Cathedral, guys, this is one of the oldest churches in Poland. This is the church which was built at least over 1,024 years ago. We don't know exactly when. We know that it was mentioned in the year 1000, but it was mentioned that it was already standing here. So probably it's older than 1,024 years old. However, guys, every next king here in Poland, knew that this is a very important church. There were coronations, there were weddings and funerals. Kings are buried underneath the church. So every next king wanted to show off. Every next king was trying to add something new to the royal cathedral. So that's why this church is so vibrant. It's so different than many other cathedrals because it's not made just with one architectural style. It's a mix of many different architectural styles which are present over here in over 800 years. Romanesque, Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque, Neoclassic. Just in one building. 800 years of architectural evolution in Poland. One of the most famous parts of the Royal Cathedral is the chapel covered with the golden dome. Can you see the golden chapel? Guys, it was made in 20s of 1500s by the artist from Italy called Bartolomeo Berecci. Historians of art, they call this golden chapel unofficially a pearl of Renaissance because it's very, very valuable, it's very unique, you may find Renaissance architecture across Europe. You're going to find Renaissance buildings, you know, basically in England, in Netherlands, in Germany, Austria, but always you're going to see differences between Renaissance buildings in these countries, yeah? Always this Renaissance building is going to have some local influences. So look, there is only one thing outside Italy, north from Alps, which is made out of pure Italian Renaissance. That's the Golden Chapel. That's why it's valuable, not because of gold. Gold is everywhere. It's valuable because of art. Because you won't find anything like that anywhere else besides here. You won't find it even in Italy. Because guys, this is not only the chapel for prayers, that's a tomb. Two kings are buried underneath. King Sigismundus the Old and King Sigismundus August. So this is actually the grave chapel, the royal grave chapel, made out of pure Italian Renaissance. And you won't find anything like that even in Italy. Because Italy in the 16th century, in the time of Renaissance, was not unified as a one kingdom. They didn't have a king. So you won't find pure Italian Renaissance royal grave chapel in Italy. There's only one thing like that in the world. Just one. That's why it's so unique. That's why it's so valuable. However, guys, as long as we know where Polish kings used to pray, let's go to see where Polish kings used to live, and let's go to find the answer how it is possible that such a lovely place like Krakow isn't the capital of Poland anymore. Why capital was moved to Warsaw? Follow me. Go to this brick building, there is an information point. Sorry, we're slightly late, so I hope you don't mind. We're supposed to finish in 2 minutes.
Senti, ho nepjechalo za chlopem.
Ale dobre niečo, ako garáži, podzemí.
So guys, the castle is the oldest part of Krakow. About 1,300 years ago, over here was actually built the first settlement. Then when the castle was not enough, obviously people had to expand up to the north, building the old town, right? However, guys, the royal palace is about 1,000 years old, because actually Krakow is the second capital of Poland. The very first capital of Poland was called Gniezno, but Gniezno was destroyed in 1038 by two things. First, the pagan uprising, not everyone wanted to be Christian. Second, there was a Czech invasion. So Czech knights from Bohemia, from Czech Republic today, they conquered, the first capital of Poland, and they destroyed it in 1038. So that's the reason why capitals moved to Krakow. And Krakow actually got a royal palace, obviously, in 1000s. But look, the royal palace has been changed many times, and always the trigger to rebuild the royal palace were fires. So in 1499, the Gothic castle burned. In 1499, however, in Italy, Renaissance was already flourishing. So our kings wanted to keep up with the current fashion from Italy. So to Krakow was brought an artist who was called Francesco Florentino. So it's very difficult to guess from which part of Italy he was coming from. Francesco Florentino in 1499 introduced people with new style, Renaissance. This is the first Renaissance building in Poland. And guys, at the same time, this is the largest Renaissance courtyard in the world. In 16th century, when the royal palace was finished, guys, it was different than today. It was colorful. Every single column was painted with red and gold. As you may see nowadays, they are grayish and yellowish. Columns are not colorful because we got something on the way. We got an occupation. We've lost independence in 1795. And during Austrian occupation, guys, our royal castle was turned into the barracks for soldiers. Soldiers were supposed to control the city. They gave an order to build walls between columns, and the 16th century paintings on columns were just scraped off. That's why they are yellowish and grayish, rather than red or gold. But guys, red and gold, it wasn't that impressive, like something you may see behind you. You're going to give a look over there. Along the frieze of a building, underneath the roof, you may find portraits of Roman emperors and their wives. Obviously, this fresco is very old. It's like 500 years old, so it doesn't have very intense colors anymore. But if you need to look carefully, especially in the corner on the right-hand side, you may notice that the background of these portraits of Roman emperors and their wives is made with the blue color. Can you see it? Guys, blue paint in 1500s, that was something way, way more expensive than gold. To make the blue paint, people had to use a rock called lapis lazuli. Guys, lapis lazuli do not exist in Europe. So in 1500s, to make the blue paint, people, they had to get lapis lazuli from the place which is called today Afghanistan. It's pretty far away. So that's why blue paint was way more expensive than gold. So can you imagine anyone who wanted to visit the king had to go through the dark corridor, like we did a few minutes ago. Then these people were entering spacious and bright red, gold, and blue painting all over around. That was wow. That was impressive. But give a look over there. Can you see the fresco stops up? It doesn't have continuation. Actually, we're not certain what happened with the rest. But there are a few theories, and my favorite is about the king. King who was called Sigismundus III Vasa. Sigismundus III Vasa, he was the king of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, but not only. He was also an amateur of alchemy. In 1595, Sigismundus III Vasa, he decided to turn lead into the gold during the alchemy experiment of transmutation of metals. Well, he wasn't very good king, and he wasn't very good alchemist neither. During his alchemy experiment, that part of a castle, it did little poof. There was an explosion, big fire, which possibly could destroy the second part of the fresco. Guys, Sigismundus III Vasa, he was a very wealthy guy. He gave money for renovations of the royal palace, but during his renovations, he moved to Warsaw. The next year, 1596, the palace was ready to come back, but the king refused to come back. He decided to stay in Warsaw, and every next king decided to live in Warsaw as well. There is a very easy reason why. Easy to understand. Guys, our kings, they were not like Taylor Swift. First of all, probably they couldn't sing. Second, they didn't have a private jet. There were no private jets yet. So look, where is Krakow? Where is Lithuania? We're called Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. So Warsaw, in the middle of the country, was simply easier to pull the strings and control the north. That's why Warsaw became the place where Polish kings used to live after 1596. But guys, this is not the year when Warsaw became officially the capital of Poland, because such document doesn't exist. Even kings used to live in Warsaw, Krakow still was considered as the capital of the kingdom, because here in the royal cathedral, kings were crowned. because here in Krakow kings were buried, because here in the royal palace were kept crown jewels. But we are not the kingdom anymore. In 1795, when Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was erased from the maps of Europe, when we lost independence, actually the city of Krakow first, it was taken by Prussians, not by Austrians. King of Prussia, called Frederick the Great, he gave Krakow as a gift to the Empress of Austria, Maria Theresa. But before he did it, he gave an order to enter the royal treasury, and he gave an order to melt the Polish crown. The Polish crown, it's gone. It doesn't exist. It was melted. It was destroyed. To many people in Poland, that was a symbol. The symbol that the Kingdom of Poland never going to be reborn. So when we got a chance to get independence back, Poland proclaimed independence in 1918 after the First World War, but as a republic, not as a kingdom. So Warsaw is officially called the capital of Polish Republic. Krakow is an old royal capital of Poland. So guys, not only kings were over here. Many artists, there are many things to visit. There are lots of things to do, so few days are not enough. You need to come back. I really recommend also to go to different cities like Gdańsk, yeah, or Warsaw. That might be very interesting. But guys, besides history knowledge about Poland, about Krakow, obviously you need to know where to get wasted. You need to get some recommendations, where to eat something nice, and you know, how to enjoy Krakow in a better way. So let's go to finish our walking tour, and I'll give you some recommendations. Follow me. Things to do. Look, there are many exhibitions just in the castle. Yeah, you may see over here the list of exhibitions. And if you'd like to buy the ticket to go inside of the Royal Palace, you need to go to this brick building behind you. This long brick building, the former hospital of the Austrian army from 1800s. This is the main tourist office, where are ticket offices as well. However, guys, if you'd like to go to the Royal Cathedral, there is a separate ticket office for the cathedral. It's in this yellowish building behind, yeah? So 2 ticket offices. One for the cathedral, another one for exhibitions in the castle. If you like to go to see the dragon, besides going down the hill the same way like we got here, you have another option. You may use the second gate. So we are here, yeah? We're going to be walking down the path. Next to the tower, you're going to see the staircade. And when you're going to go down the staircade, you're going to see another gate, and then go down the hill, and the dragon is going to be more or less over here on the bank of the river. But guys, there are lots of things to do. So in the city of Krakow, we have only 96 museums. And definitely besides the castle, I really recommend to find a museum where you're going to find very famous painting made by the artist called Leonardo
DiCaprio.
Very good. I'm always asking because some people are telling me Leonardo DiCaprio, so you know. Leonardo da Vinci painting called Lady with an Ermine. It's here in Krakow. Obviously, guys, you need to find this museum, and you need to find some places to eat and drink. So can you see on my badge, on my name tag, you may see the QR code. If you're going to scan this QR code, you're going to get an access to our link tree, and that will be possible to find our recommendations. Also, it's going to be possible to make the reservation for our different tour called the Jewish Quarter Tour. We start the Jewish Quarter Tour at 3 o'clock every day, or on weekends like from Friday till Sunday, we started also in the morning at 11 o'clock. Guys, we start the Jewish Quarter Tour in front of the oldest synagogue in Poland, in the Jewish district. This place is called the Old Synagogue, so very easy to remember. So obviously, guys, you're going to scan it. You can make the reservation for tomorrow or the after tomorrow, because today afternoon we are, I believe, overbooked. But you can give it a try, yeah? Obviously, guys, like I said at the very beginning of our walking tour, I'm not paid by the government. I'm not paid by anyone else besides you. However, obviously, you have the right to estimate your own price. When you talk about free tour concept, this is your free will. So even in our group are some people who made the reservation for Get Your Guide, even you paid up front. Obviously, you don't have to give me anything at all, because you already paid. However, also you have the right to estimate your own price, so you can ask me for change. When you talk about people who made the reservation for Viator, Viator booking system already charge you the commission, but I do not get this money. I'm getting money only from you. So obviously, I accept foreign currencies. And before you're going to decide about your own payment, Keep in mind, my wife earns minimum wage. Somebody has to pay for taxes and for the flats and everything. Guys, if you like to move to Poland, to live over here, I really recommend Krakow. Krakow is very open-minded. It's a very nice place. It's very, very safe. But obviously, the time has changed. Krakow is not the same like it used to be in the past. It's way more expensive. 5 years ago, for one beer, you'd pay £1. Now, it's quite similar like in England. Sometimes it might be even more expensive. So it's good to scan the code because you're going to get some recommendations where it's very good quality of food, and definitely we recommend it. That's all. Thank you very much. But in the end, wait a second, in the end, one few words. Guys, obviously you don't have to remember dates. You don't have to remember names. But after this very long and very boring tour, I hope you won't forget that we didn't have easy history. That Krakow had to survive many occupations, many wars, but Krakow did it. Krakow survived World War II. Krakow survived almost 50 years of communism. And after that long and difficult history, I believe Krakow is going to survive everything. Guys, the national anthem of Poland starts with a line, Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, kiedy my żyjemy. In English translation, it means more or less, Poland never gonna die as long we are alive. That's why I would love to thank you very much that you decided to join me in this beautiful day, because I believe this part of Poland I showed you never gonna die. Krakow is going to stay forever in your memories, in your hearts, and obviously on your Instagram profiles too. Thank you a lot. Thank you very much. Thank you.